Who are you? What are you?
I'm kind of figuring that out.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Greetings and salutations, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, the Infuso. Got it memorized? Today we're going to be talking about the brand new Superman show, My Adventures with Superman. Or at least the first half of that season. I work with what I got, and that is what is out at the time of me recording this. The show explores the early days of the last son of Krypton. Not just going through the beginnings of Superman, but the origins of Kal-El and Clark Kent as well. While the story is set during Clark's first day at his new job, the Daily Planet, episodic flashbacks take us back to the character's childhood, and they help give us a better idea of his upbringing. It feels a little reminiscent of Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder's method of telling a superhero's starting years. But the past never takes precedent over the present. The flashbacks are short-lived and are usually condensed to just 1 or 2 scenes per episode. The show follows roommates Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen as they begin their careers as interns at the Daily Planet, where they meet the passionate, soon-to-be reporter Lois Lane. The three form a bond and very quickly become as thick as thieves, becoming a 3-man team. I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoy the depiction of these iconic characters. They feel like the characters I know and love, just now presented in a new format, each one perfectly prepared. Clark Kent is every bit as modest, honest, and humble as you'd hope for him to be. He's kind-hearted, well-meaning, and downright do-gooder to a disgusting degree. I think what I appreciate the most out of this show is how they showcase Superman, showing that he does a lot more than just beat up bad guys. This Superman is a true-to-form, stereotypical superhero. This Superman isn't just a good guy, he's a good guy who does good things. Helping small business owners, saving missing cats from trees. His generosity was endless before he ever donned a cape. Jack Quaid really brings his A-game here. I would have never pegged him for the Man of Tomorrow, but he really makes it work. It's everything you'd want in a Superman performance that the tone of this show allows. But there are a few things that make this Supe stand out from the others. He seems to have some sort of premonitions and flashbacks, and it also seems like he's almost alerted to danger, like biologically, like he has some sort of super spider sense. We don't see a whole lot of Clark's parents thus far, but Ma and Pa Kent feel every bit as loving and warm as you'd imagine. And his Kryptonian father, Jor-El, I can't really talk about his characterization considering that he's never spoke a word of English. He speaks primarily in Kryptonese, but I will say appearance-wise, it's a good look. Lois Lane is the ambitious go-getter who takes reckless risks when she sees a reward in sight. She goes the extra mile to get her story, even if nobody's asking her to get that story, and even if getting that story means sacrificing her safety and her friends' jobs. Her life's work is her obsession, and her dedication knows no bounds. She's spunky, she's smart, and she's a problem to whoever the subject of her next story is. This is Lois Lane to a T. I would even go as far to say that this is my favorite depiction of Lois Lane that we've gotten in years. Lois literally puts herself in harm's way intentionally to try and coerce Superman into an interview. That is literally the most Lois Lane thing I think I've ever heard in my life. The show does a solid job of showcasing her intelligence and her investigative skills. As halfway into the first season's run, she's able to figure out Superman's greatest secret. I love that this Lois was able to see through the hero's thinly veiled disguise in record time, realizing that Clark Kent is secretly Superman. They show her immediate suspicions and follow that instinct through, confronting Clark and pulling a move that would make Margot Kidder proud, managing to make the Man of Steel reveal himself. And Jimmy Olsen is literally what the comics always claimed him to be. He was Superman's pal. I think in this series, more than in almost any other, the two really feel like equals in their friendship. Almost always, Jimmy comes across as Supe's annoying little brother or surrogate son. Here, the two just seem to be at the same place in life. And while he's still developing his dynamic with Supe's, he is in fact Clark's best friend. It's a fresh-feeling take that works wonders despite its simplicity. The new twist on the character is that he's now a conspiracy theorist, and whose theories reside in fact half of the time, but also in fiction the other half of the time. Believing some pretty out-there absurd stuff, but some of which winds up actually being true. It's a little touch that makes the character feel a little more current, and it's a unique quirk that I think works well for the narrative of the show. The core of this show is the bond between these three, and I absolutely love it. These are all valid variants of the Metropolis tripod. They're well cast, well acted, with talent that plays well off each other. While I stand by the fact that the show did these characters justice, that's not to say they did every character justice. As a matter of fact, there are some downright injustices done. I think this show's worst trait has to be how it adapts villains. The bad guys on the show feel incredibly lackluster. All of them just feel like episodic enemies, monsters of the week. And even if they are, their plots are paper thin and their characterization is somehow even thinner. None of the bad guys ever feel all that interesting, or even recognizable. The show adapted Superman and Friends perfectly to this new art style, but his rogues gallery somehow comes out looking like the most basic and generic threats. Their characterization isn't any better by any means either. They're all just as boring and bland as they look. They sound and act almost nothing like the characters that they're based on, and most of which you wouldn't be able to properly identify if someone didn't expressly introduce you. It's a surprisingly big letdown compared to all the goodwill the rest of the show has drummed up. What makes matters even worse is that their performances aren't so bad that they're fun, they're just so bland that they're forgettable. Livewire and Parasite are nothing like their comic and cartoon counterparts. Turning Parasite into a discount Tony Stark is not only a gross misunderstanding of the actual character, but their intentions in creating this character is so thinly veiled that it's transparent. Boastful billionaire with a goatee and a mech suit? Come on guys, were you even trying? And if you were, what were you trying to do? This is honestly just scuffed Tony Stark going through Norman Osborn's arc from the first Spider-Man movie, while cosplaying as a combination of Scorpion and the Full Metal Alchemist guy. Of course, by the end of the episode, they transform the character into something that somewhat resembles what he's based on, but even then so, just barely. Livewire is highly disappointing. It sort of feels like the show missed the point and premise of the actual character, because her name is a double entendre. It's not based solely on her powers, the name also accurately describes her personality. She was a high-energy, smack-talking bad guy who didn't have an off switch, but now here she's confined to just being a bad boss lady. But the worst offender by far has to be this show's depiction of Deathstroke, or should I say Slade Wilson. This non-Deathstroke doesn't have his trademark name, mask, or costume, and as opposed to having an eye patch, he has a strain of hair covering his right eye. Oh yeah, that's great. Make him look like an effeminate Final Fantasy villain. He looks like Pegasus the early years. To make matters even worse, this Slade is considerably younger and hyper-fixated on being a good guy, which is kind of a far cry from the violent mercenary that he's based on. And the part's played by Jerry from Rick and Morty, which fits just about as well as it sounds. That is to say that it does not fit, and it does not sound good, and it is not good. It's an unfortunately fumbled failure that makes Slade look goofy, though surprisingly his voice actor, Chris Parnell, does do a decent job in sounding vaguely villainous. I'm a fan of the guy's work, but I just don't think that this is necessarily the right role for him. I don't want to spend too much time talking about a one-off villain, but this is almost offensive, it's so bad. I think the actual Slade Wilson could have worked well within the confines of the show. I mean, sure, you'd have to sanitize him a bit, but if it worked for Teen Titans, there's no reason it shouldn't work here. It's strange, considering how much of the show is a hit, how could they miss this much in the bad guy category?
What have they done to us?
What did they do to us?
Life is nothing I thought it should be and everything I was worried it would become.
And I legitimately didn't realize that these characters were supposed to be Mist and Silver Banshee until about halfway through that episode. Here, they're just a bunch of thieves who are gifted with technology that grants them their powers. I can't even accurately describe them to you because they're so nondescript. We don't get to see a lot of Amanda Waller, but thus far the character looks and acts the part, with Deborah Wilson giving a true-to-character performance. Alongside her is her partner in crime, a man who's just called the General, who I imagine very shortly will go on to be revealed as Lois Lane's father, General Sam Lane. The show even gives love to some of the less loved Daily Planet personalities. Cat Grant, Steve Lombard, Ronnie Trope, they're all here. While the bad guys may come and go, they're linked together through Task Force X, which is a much more sanitized Suicide Squad. They're like the unalive hive. Another thing linking these events together is the fact that in this reimagining, all of the villains thus far have origins intertwined with Kryptonian technology. In a lot of ways, it kind of feels similar to Smallville. in how they linked a lot of their villains' origins to Superman through the meteor showers that brought him here, and how the kryptonite from that catastrophe affected the people in this small ville. As a method of convenient storytelling, I like it. However, I think in execution, it winds up robbing the vast majority of these characters of what makes them special and allows them to stand out. Although because of this, the show doesn't feel like separate stories starring the same characters. It feels like one fluid story start to finish, or start to midway point, we're still going. The show is very well animated, but I can't say that I'm particularly fond of the art style. It's not bad, it's just not really for me. It's obviously anime inspired, both in terms of the way that it's drawn and also the usage of some of the tropes. I mean, they can't make it past 10 frames without making a main character blush. And they straight up gave Superman a Sailor Moon transformation sequence, but I don't even hate it. But outside of the main cast and supporting characters, I don't really like the way the show translates the designs of the source material. They just don't appeal to me or look all that interesting. I don't even think it's just a fault of the art style and it not resonating with me. I think it's just bad design. I think that they're really basic designs that are low-key kind of blasphemous. I don't want to rag on the show because I am a fan of it. I don't like anime at all, but I happen to really love this show. More than anything else, this show sure knows how to plant a seed. It's very self-referential to its previous continuity. Lois Lane at one point points out situations from previous episodes that helped her come to a conclusion, and these are things that you wouldn't necessarily notice her noticing. So while they may run on a bad guy of the week formula, these events are essentially stepping stones for the greater narrative. It's constantly moving forward, and it feels like it has a story to tell, not taking many deviations, just the occasional big bad roadblock. I know that's a weird thing to focus on, but I'm literally writing this coming off of watching several movies with severe pacing problems, so I just really appreciate the coherency in this continuity. The tone of the series is light but meaningful. In the 23 minutes they're afforded per episode, they manage to convey major moments through a short, wholesome, lighthearted narrative. All of this feels like a true return from the classic campy Red Blue Boy Scout. Overall, while there is a few minor and one major factor about the show I dislike, I found that there was so much more that I thoroughly enjoyed. I admire the use of previously established elements and story beats, but playing them in favor of their own narrative. Lois Lane jumping from a building in an attempt to get Clark to reveal his secret identity is straight out of the 78 series. Jimmy going incognito on social media as Flamebird, which is also a name he went by in the comics when he got powers for a short bit of time.
You think he's a plane?
It's a plane!
It kinda looks like a bird.
It's a bird! It's Superman!
Although, keeping those references in mind, that does make me a little bit scared for the way that they ended their last episode. I think the show is a solid take on the Superman mythos, and it manages to be true to the source, but also uniquely its own. My Adventures with Superman is a cute, charming retelling of the Superman story, and I look forward to seeing what they do next. In my opinion, it's well worth the watch. Even if it doesn't seem like it's your thing, give it a shot, because it wasn't mine, and now it is. So if you haven't seen it yet, I highly suggest remedying that. And with all that being said, if you like this video and be interested in seeing a part 2 when the season's finally over, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
The Superman is real!
I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.